Now the last part of this section is around the commonly used project artifacts. An artifact is simple as a template, document, output, or project deliverable. There are many documents or deliverables that are not described in this lecture, either because they are somewhat generic, like the project documents updates, for example. They are industry specific, or they are a result of a specific method that was used to create this artifact. For example, while cost estimates are an important artifact, they are a result of various estimation methods. Therefore, it will not be covered in this lecture. The descriptions are presented here at a high level, as project managers and or project team members are expected to tailor the use of these artifacts to meet the needs of their particular project. There is more detailed information on these and other artifacts from many resources, such as the PMI Standards Plus. So starting with the strategy artifacts that are used at a project level, documents that are created prior to or at the start of the project that address strategic, business, or high-level information about the project. Strategy artifacts are developed at the start of a project and do not normally change, though they may be reviewed throughout the project. So usually the artifacts that fall into this category, the strategy artifacts, are rarely updated or changed throughout the project. They are usually created before the kickoff of the project or at the very early phases of the project. The first artifact is the project business case, which is the value proposition for a proposed project that may include financial and non-financial benefits. So simply, the business case artifact should answer the question why we are initiating this project. This is the business justification of why we are starting this project. It might be financial or non-financial reasons. The second artifact is the business model canvas. This artifact is a one-page visual summary that describes the value proposition, infrastructure, customers, and finances. These are often used in lean startup situations. So it's a one-page visual summary that describes the value we are expecting from the project, the high-level infrastructure, who are the customers, and what are the financial requirements of the project. The third artifact is the project brief, which provides a high-level overview of the goals, deliverables, and processes for the project. So it's a high-level document that will provide only a brief about the project goals and deliverables. One of the most important strategy artifacts that is usually created at the early phases of the project is the project charter. It can be defined as a document issued by the project initiator or sponsor that formally authorizes the existence of a project and provides the project manager with the authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. So think about the project charter as the formal contract, internal contract between the organizational management and the project manager. Once it is signed or approved by the sponsor, it will formally authorize the existence of the project. It's the birth certificate of the project that will give the project manager the authority to use the organizational resources. Another artifact is the project vision statement. This document is a concise, high-level description of the project that states, in a high level only, the purpose and inspires the project team to contribute to the project. So everyone in the project should be aligned on the project vision statement that will be a motivational factor of what we want to achieve as at the end of the project. The roadmap is another strategy artifact. It's a document that provides a high-level timeline that depicts milestones, significant events, reviews, and decision points. So it's a high-level timeline for the project. We don't have enough information, or team is not mobilized yet to develop a detailed timeline for the project. So we will develop only a roadmap that is a high-level timeline showing the key milestones and significant events in the project. The second category is the logs and registers that are used to record on continuous basis the evolving aspects of the project. They are updated throughout the project. The terms logs and register are sometimes used interchangeably. It's not uncommon to see the term risk register or risk log referring to the same artifact. So we have a group of registers and logs that are used in the project lifecycle. The term log is similar to the term register. So starting with assumption log. An assumption, as defined earlier, is a factor that is considered to be true, real, or certain without proof or demonstration. So assumptions are items we assume that they are true for the purpose of planning, while a constraint is a factor that limits the options for managing a project, program, portfolio, or process. An assumption log will record all the assumptions and constraints throughout the project. So that's simple. We will have a document known as the assumption log where all the project assumptions and constraints will be documented. The second log or register is the backlog, which is an ordered list of work to be done. It is used in Agile projects as a repository for all the project requirements and features required by the customer. Projects may have a product backlog, a requirements backlog, an impediments backlog, and so forth. But the most popular one is the product backlog. Items in a product backlog are prioritized based on their value. The prioritized work is then scheduled for the upcoming iterations. So when the Agile team, wants to select the items they want to work on the upcoming iteration, they will select the items at the top of the product backlog. Change log is a comprehensive list of changes submitted during the project and their current status. So in order to keep an eye on all the change requests that were initiated in the project, we will document them all in the change log. A change can be a modification to any formally controlled deliverable, project management plan component, or project document. So we will keep an eye on all the change requests and the status of each in the change log artifact. The issue log is similar to the change log, but here we will document all the issues of the project. An issue is a current condition or situation that may have an impact on the project objectives. An issue log is used to record and monitor information on all the active issues of the project. Issues are assigned to a responsible party for follow-up and resolution. Usually this party is known as the issue owner. So the issue log is the document where all the project issues will be documented. Lessons learned register is used to record the knowledge gained during a project phase or iteration so that it can be used to improve future performance for the project team and or the organization. Risk-adjusted backlog. It's a backlog that includes work and actions to address threats and opportunities. So it's similar to the product backlog as a very important project artifact or log. However, when you include the risk response plans in order to deal with the project threats, it will be a risk-adjusted backlog. The risk register, one of the most commonly used registers, it is the repository in which outputs of risk management processes are being recorded. So all the updates of the risk management processes will be recorded in the risk register, starting with the identified risks, the risk owners, the risk triggers, the results of the risk analysis, and the proposed response plans. Information in a risk register can include the person responsible for managing the risk, probability, impact, risk score, planned risk responses, and other information used to get a high-level understanding of individual project risks. The stakeholder register is also a very important register that is used frequently in projects. It records information about all the project identified stakeholders, which includes an assessment and classification of the project stakeholders. So it's a log where all the stakeholders who were identified in the project are being documented with relevant information. Another part of the commonly used artifacts will be the plans. And the plan is a proposed means of accomplishing something. Project teams develop plans for individual aspects of a project and or combine all of that information into an overarching project management plan. So we will develop a plan to manage all the knowledge areas in the project, like the scope and the schedule and the budget. However, at the end, we will have a comprehensive unified project management plan. Plans generally are written documents but may also be reflected on visual or virtual whiteboard. So how plans are being documented, this depends on the complexity of the project and the development approach being used. Starting with the change control plan, which is a component of the project management plan that describes the change control board, documents the extent of its authority, and describes how the change control system will be implemented. So in this plan, we will document how we are going to deal with the change requests in the project and what will be the authority of the change control board. Another plan is the plan responsible for the communications in the project. It's also a component of the project, program, or portfolio management plan, and it describes how, when, and by whom information about the project will be administered and disseminated. So how communication will be conducted in the project, in which frequency, in what format, all this will be documented in the communication management plan. The cost management plan, it's also a component of a project or a program management plan that will describe how costs in the project will be planned, how they will be structured, and how they will be controlled. Iteration plan, it's the plan, or this plan is a detailed plan for the current iteration. It's the outcome of the iteration planning meeting conducted before the kickoff of the iteration, where the development team will select the items from the product backlog that they believe they will be able to commit to during this iteration. So this artifact is an output of the iteration planning meeting. Procurement management plan. This plan is a component of the project or program management plan that describes how a project team will acquire goods and services from outside the performing organization, how the procurement will be managed in the project, what services or products will be procured from outside the project or the organization. This will be documented in the procurement management plan. Now, the majority of these plans will be documented or will be components of the project management plan, which is a document that describes how the project will be executed, monitored, and controlled and closed. So the project management plan is the key input to the execution phase of the project. Simply what we will do in the execution, we will execute what we planned for and documented in the project management plan. Quality management plan, it's also a component of the project or the program management plan that describes how applicable policies, procedures, and guidelines will be implemented to achieve the quality objectives of the project. We will think in advance how we are going to conduct all the quality management activities in the project. Similar to the iteration plan, we will have a release plan. It sets expectations for the dates, features, and or outcomes expected to be delivered over the course of multiple iterations in the project. So it's an outcome of the release planning meeting. A release is a group of iterations with an expected feature or increment at the end of it. We have also the requirements management plan, which is also a subsidiary of the project management plan that will describe how requirements will be analyzed, documented, and managed. This is very important, how we are going to define the project scope and the product scope based on the gathered requirements. Now, how to deal with requirements, how to analyze these requirements, this will be documented in the requirements management plan. Another subsidiary of the project management plan will be the resource management plan, which is again a component of the project or program management plan that describes how project resources will be acquired to the project, how they will be allocated to the different activities, and how we are going to monitor and control the resources performance. The risk management plan is a component of the project or the program or the portfolio management plan that describes how risk management activities will be structured and performed throughout the project, how we are going to identify risks, the roles and responsibilities, the budget of the risk management activities. All this will be documented in the risk management plan. The scope management plan, also a component of the project or the program management plan that describes how scope will be defined, developed, monitored, controlled, and validated. We will think in advance how we are going to manage the project scope, and we will document this in the scope management plan. Another component of the project management plan is the schedule management plan, which is a component of the project or the program management plan that establishes the criteria and the activities for developing, monitoring, and controlling the project schedule. How we are going to deal with the schedule management activities, This will be documented in the schedule management plan. The stakeholder engagement plan, it's a component of the project management plan that identifies the strategies and actions required to promote productive involvement of stakeholders in project program, decision making, and execution. How we are going to manage the stakeholders' expectations, how we are going to manage and ensure their engagement throughout the project. This will be part of the stakeholder engagement plan. And finally, we have the test plan. This document is not a component of the project management plan. However, in this document, we will describe deliverables that will be tested, tests that will be conducted in the project, and the processes that will be used in testing activities. It forms the basis for formally testing the components and the deliverables of the project. Hierarchy charts, another part of the project artifacts. So hierarchy charts begin with high-level information that is progressively decomposed into greater levels of detail. The information at the upper level encompasses all the information at the lower or a subsidiary level, so it's a hierarchy. Hierarchy charts are often progressively elaborated into greater levels of detail as more information is known about the project. So it's enough to develop a high-level hierarchy chart at the beginning of the project and then decompose this hierarchy chart into further detailed levels. The first one is the organizational breakdown structure, or the OBS. This chart is a hierarchical representation of the project organization, which illustrates the relationship between project activities and the organizational units that will perform those activities. This can be done at the organizational level or at the project level. The product breakdown structure, it's a chart, or it's a hierarchical structure reflecting a product's components and deliverables. Usually at the top of this hierarchy we will have the product or the final deliverables, and then at the subsidiary or the lower levels we will have more detailed components. The RBS, or the resource breakdown structure, it's a hierarchical representation of all the resources that will be used in the project, categorized by category and type of resources. The risk breakdown structure, it's a hierarchical representation of potential sources of risks. What are the key sources of risk? The RBS will document them. It's very useful as a reminder after identifying risks in the project to make sure we did not miss any category. The WBS, or the work breakdown structure, this chart is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work to be carried out by the project team to accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. This is the most important hierarchical chart, the WBS, or the work breakdown structure. It's a decomposition of the total scope of the work that we will be executing in the project. Any item that does not exist in the work breakdown structure is out of the project scope. Baselines, another group of commonly used project artifacts. A baseline is the approved version of a work product or plan. Actual performance during the project execution is compared to the baselines to identify any variances which we need an action to recover. So the baseline is the approved version from the budget, from the schedule, from the scope. So we have different baselines in the project. How they will be utilized throughout the project execution. Actual performance during the project execution will be compared to the approved baselines to identify any variances. Any variance, especially the non-ordinary variances, should be rectified by taking the appropriate action. The first baseline is the budget, and the budget is the approved estimate for the project or any work breakdown structure component or any schedule activity. Okay, so the budget of a specific activity or the work package or a deliverable is the approved estimate. The milestone schedule, this type of schedule presents milestones with all planned dates of completions. Milestones are significant events in the project with zero duration. So the milestone schedule baseline will present all the milestones in the project with planned dates. Performance measurement baseline is the integrated scope, schedule, and cost baselines that are used for comparison to manage, measure, and control project execution. So if we want to integrate the scope with the schedule and the cost to monitor their performance in an integrated manner throughout the project execution, we will use the performance measurement baseline. The project schedule is an output of a schedule model that presents linked activities with planned dates, durations, milestones, and resources. This is one of the very important artifacts in the project. The project schedule, it will be the reference we will use to check our performance in terms of duration. And we have also the scope baseline, which is the approved version of a scope statement, WBS or work breakdown structure, and its associated WBS dictionary that can be changed using formal change control procedures, and it's used as the basis for comparison to actual results. So similar to the cost baseline and the schedule baseline, the scope baseline is the approved version of three things: the scope statement, the work breakdown structure, and the work breakdown structure dictionary. This will be our reference throughout the project execution to determine if we have any items that are out of our project scope. Visual data and information are artifacts that organize and present data and information in a visual format, such as charts, graphs, matrices, and diagrams. So they are very important to support decision making for presenting the project performance to the executives of the project. Visualizing data makes it easier to absorb data and turn it into information. Visualization artifacts are often produced after data have been collected and analyzed. So usually these artifacts are developed after gathering the project data and information, analyzing this data, and then generating some insights. In order to present those insights to the executives and the decision makers, we will use the visual data and information. And these artifacts will definitely aid in decision making and prioritization. Some of the commonly used ones includes the affinity diagramming, which shows a large number of ideas classified into groups for review and analysis. So affinity means similarity. If we want to present a large number of ideas, items, or risks classified into groups based on their similarities, we can use this visual data artifact. The burn down or the burn up charts are very commonly used, especially in the Agile projects. This chart is a graphical representation of the work remaining in a time box or the work completed toward the release of a product or project deliverable. So the burn down is known as the burn down because it shows the work remaining in a specific time box, while the burn up is used to show the work completed toward the release of a product. So both are visual data and information artifacts that are frequently used to make it accessible for all the stakeholders in the project to see the project progress at any time. Cause and effect diagrams. This diagram is a visual representation that helps trace an undesirable effect back to its root cause. If we want to see a root cause of a problem or an issue that we are investigating, we can use the cause and effect diagram. Cumulative flow diagram, or the CFD. This chart indicates features completed over time, features in development, and those in the backlog. So it will present three different types of features: the one that were completed over time, the one that are currently in the development, and the ones that are still in the product backlog. So it's usually used in Agile development projects. It may also include features at intermediate states, such as features designed but not yet constructed, those in quality assurance, or those in the testing phase. So cumulative flow diagrams can be useful in order to present the status of the features in the project. Cycle time chart. This diagram shows the average cycle time of the work items completed over time. We explained earlier the concept of the cycle time, and this chart will only be a diagram that shows the average cycle time of the completed work items in the project. It may be shown as a scatter diagram or a simple bar chart. Dashboards. This set of charts and graphs shows progress or performance against important measures of the project. So if you want to present multiple areas of information in a simple presentation to the executives or the decision makers, dashboards are very useful visual data and information artifact for this purpose. The flow chart, which is a diagram that depicts the inputs, process actions, and outputs of one or more processes within a system. The Gantt chart, it's a bar chart that provides schedule information where activities are listed on the vertical axis. Dates are shown in the horizontal axis. Gantt chart is the most commonly used representation of the project schedule that are used in projects, and specifically the infrastructure or the construction projects. Simply, the activities will be listed on the vertical axis and the dates of those activities are shown on the horizontal axis, and the horizontal bars of each activity will present the duration of this activity, and those horizontal bars will be placed according to start and finish dates. Histogram, this bar chart shows the graphical representation of numerical data. So it's similar to the bar chart that shows the representation of any numerical data. It's usually used in the quality control processes to present the number of defects and the numerical data gathered after the quality testings are conducted. Information radiators, a concept that we explained earlier. This artifact is a visible physical display that provides information to the rest of the organization, enabling timely knowledge sharing. So information radiators are simple, low-tech, high-touch tools that are used to share and radiate information in a timely manner. Lead time chart, it's similar to the cycle time chart. It's a diagram that shows the trend over time of the average lead time of the items completed in work. A lead time chart may be shown as a scatter diagram or a bar chart, similar to the cycle time chart. So the lead time chart is a simple diagram that shows the average lead time of items completed. Prioritization matrix, it's a matrix, or this matrix is a scatter diagram where effort is shown on the horizontal axis and value on the vertical axis, divided into 4 quadrants to classify the items or the requirements by their priority. Project schedule network diagram, it's a graphical representation that shows the logical relationships among the project schedule activities. So it's a representation of the project schedule and the activities and the sequences between these activities. Requirements traceability matrix, a very important tool when it comes to requirements management. This matrix links product requirements from their origin to the deliverables that satisfy them. So we want to make sure that every requirement is linked to at least one of the project deliverables. So we will use this traceability matrix. Responsibility assignment matrix, or RAM. This matrix is a grid that shows the project resources assigned to each work package. So each work package located on the work breakdown structure should be linked to a resource who will be responsible about the work of this package. A RACI chart is a common way of showing stakeholders who are responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed, and they are associated with project activities, decisions, and deliverables. So the responsibility assignment matrix is a useful visual data and information artifact that will help you see who is responsible or who is the resource responsible for each work package or activity in the project. One of the popular formats of the RAM is the RACI chart. R for responsible, A for accountable, C for consult, and I for inform. So it's a chart that will show you the roles, the responsible, accountable, consult, and informed for each activity. Scatter diagram, it's a graph that shows simply a relationship between two variables in the project. The S-curve will usually display the cumulative costs over a specified period of time. If you want to see the cumulative budget we spent on the project up to date, we will use the S-curve. Stakeholder engagement assessment matrix, it's a simple matrix that will compare the current and desired stakeholder engagement levels. While we are planning for stakeholders' engagement in the project, we will determine what is the desired engagement level of each stakeholder. And through execution, we will capture information about the level of engagement of each stakeholder, and we will compare between them. This is the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix purpose. The story map, it's a visual model of all the features and functionality desired for a given product, created to give the project team a holistic view of what they are building and why they are building them. So it's a high-level visual model that is used to present all the features and functionality we are planning to build in the final product. The throughput chart, it's a chart that shows the accepted deliverables over time. It may be shown as a scatter diagram or a bar chart. It's similar to the lead time chart or the cycle time chart. Use case, it's an artifact that describes and explores how a user interacts with a system in order to achieve a specific goal in the project. It's very important in requirements data, on requirements gathering and analysis. Value stream map, we covered this tool in the Agile sections. It's a lean enterprise method that is used to document, analyze, and improve the flow of information or materials required to produce a product or service for a customer. Value stream maps can be used to identify waste. So in order to optimize a specific process, in order to define the areas that will not add any value, the value stream map can be used. And finally, we have the velocity chart. It's a chart that visually tracks the rate at which the deliverables are being produced, validated, and accepted within a predefined interval in the project. So it's a simple chart to monitor the Agile team's velocity. Another category of the commonly used artifacts will be the reports, and reports can be defined as formal records or summaries of information. Reports communicate relevant, usually at the summary level, information to stakeholders as per the communication management plan. Often reports are given to the stakeholders who are interested in the project status, such as the sponsors, the business owners, or the project management office of the organization. Examples of such reports include the quality report, which is a project document or artifact that includes the quality management issues, recommendations for corrective actions, and a summary of findings from quality control activities. It may include recommendations for process, project, and product improvements. So any information you want to share with stakeholders about the current status of the project quality, the defects we found in the product, will be part of the quality report. A risk report is similar to the quality report, but it is more focused on the risk management processes. So this report or this document is developed progressively throughout the risk management processes and summarizes information on individual project risks and the level of overall project risk. A status report, it's a document that provides a report on the current status of the project. It may include information on progress since the last report and forecasts for cost and schedule performance in the project. So the status report is focused on the project performance in terms of cost and schedule. Agreements and contracts are another category of the commonly used artifacts. An agreement can be defined as any document or communication that defines the intentions of the parties, two parties or more. In projects, agreements take the form of contracts or other defined understandings, and contracts are being managed as part of the procurement management processes. A contract is a mutually binding agreement that obligates the seller to provide the specified product, service, or result. At the same time, it will obligate the buyer to pay for this product, service, or result. There are different types of contracts, some of which fall within a category of fixed price or cost reimbursable contracts. The first category is the fixed price contract. This category of contract involves setting a fixed price for a well-defined product, service, or result. Fixed price contracts can be firm fixed price incentive fee, and fixed price with economic price adjustment, among others. So simply, a fixed price contract is a contract where we will set a fixed price for a product with a very clear scope and requirements. So we are not expecting a change in this product. In this type of contracts, the seller will carry the majority of the project risk, because there will be no changes to the price that were agreed on in the contract. There are different types. Firm fixed price. Sometimes the buyer will provide the seller with an incentive fee based on their performance. So this is a fixed price incentive fee. And sometimes for projects that will span over years and we are expecting prices to change, we can use a fixed price with economic price adjusted. The second type is the cost reimbursable. In this type, the buyer will have the majority of the contract risk. This category of contracts involves payments to the seller for actual costs incurred for completing the work, plus a fee representing the profit of the seller. These contracts are often used when the project scope is not well defined or it is subject to frequent change, so we cannot agree to a fixed price. So if your scope is very clear and you are not expecting a lot of changes, use the fixed price contract. If your scope is not clear and you are expecting multiple changes, you will use the cost reimbursable contract. Cost reimbursable contracts include cost plus award fee, cost plus fixed fee, and cost plus incentive fee. The third category is a hybrid contract between both. It's the time and materials. This contract establishes a fixed rate but not a precise statement of work. It's usually used for staff augmentation, subject matter experts hiring, or other outside support. So if you want only resources for your project and you will pay per hour or per man day, you can use the time and material contract. Indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. This is another category of contracts. This contract provides for an indefinite quantity of goods or services with a stated lower and upper limit and within a fixed time period and the project. These contracts can be used for architectural, engineering, or information technology engagements. So we will have an indefinite quantity of goods with the lower and upper limits over a fixed period of time. Other agreements include Memorandum of Understanding or MOU, Memorandum of Agreement or MOA, Service Level Agreement, Basic Ordering Agreement, among others. So all these are examples of agreements we can use in our projects. And finally, we have the other artifacts category. The documents and deliverables described here do not fit into a specific category. However, they are important and they can be used for a variety of purposes. Starting with the activity list, which is a document that provides a tabulation of scheduled activities that shows the activity description, activity identifier, and sufficiently detailed scope of work description, so project team members understand what work is to be performed. So simply, it's a list of all the project activities. It's an output of the defined activities process. Bidding documents are used to request proposals from prospective sellers. If we want to obtain a proposal from a seller, we should share with this seller the bidding documents. Depending on the goods or services needed, bid documents can be only request for information. It can be a request for quotation if we have the items we want to buy identified, for example, in a bill of quantity. We can use the request for quotation. If we don't have clear requirements and we want solutions to be proposed from the sellers, we will use the request for proposal. Requirements documentation. This document is a record of product requirements and relevant information needed to manage the requirements in the project, which includes the associated category, priority, and acceptance criteria. Now, matrix describe an attribute and how to measure this attribute, how we are going to measure the success in terms of budget or in terms of schedule or resources utilization. At the end of the project, we will use the matrix. A project team charter, it's a document that records the project team values, the agreements, and the operating guidelines, and it establishes clear expectations regarding acceptable behavior by the project team members. So the ground rules of the interactions between the project team members will be documented in the project team charter. The project calendar identifies working days and shifts that are available for scheduled activities in the project. The project calendar is a document that will identify the working days, and as per the project calendar, we will conduct our planning activities. The user story is a brief description of an outcome for a specific user, which is a promise of a conversation to clarify details. How we are going to document our requirements in an agile project using the user stories format. It's a brief description of an outcome for a specific user.